What's up, everyone? You ever get a copy of National Geographic or Astronomy magazine and read about what's going to happen to the universe in the billions of years that are supposedly ahead of us? And then you ask yourself, where does the return of Christ fit into all of this? How do we avoid intellectual schizophrenia where we're thinking about two different things which are not compatible? And how do we make sense of what is true and what is not true? This is part 3 of 5 on the end times. And if I use any kind of vocabulary which is unfamiliar to you, and much of eschatological vocabulary is unfamiliar to most North Americans, please wait on till the end, and I do have a vocabulary session at the end of this video. So what does science teach? What does, more specifically, cosmology teach about the end of the universe? How are things going to end? Well, there are 5 basic views on that are out there right now, and they're all sort of vying for preeminence, kind of like racehorses coming down the home stretch. One is the Big Chill. Now, the Big Chill is probably one you've heard about. The universe supposedly started about 13.7 billion years ago in one little spot, and there was a bang, and it goes out and it's expanding. It's expanding even now. And eventually that expansion will go from this hot little piece that was the Big Bang, and it will slowly cool down, much like taking a coal out of the fire, and it eventually cools down on its own, to the point where everything is so spread out and frozen, and everything will hit absolute zero. The other one is the Big Rip. The Big Rip is that the space between the galaxies will expand, but the galaxies themselves will hold together. And it's kind of like the Big Chill, just with another stage in between. But in the end, everything sort of falls apart and freezes. The third one is the Big Crunch, kind of like a rubber band. Things expand out to a certain level, and eventually gravity pulls on things and it starts crashing back in and exploding, the Big Crunch. The fourth one is the Big Bounce. So we are expanding now, but gravity will pull it back together and it will bounce and happen again and again and again. And for all we know, we're in the middle of an infinite series of bounces. The one I don't fully understand is the Big Slurp. It talks about false vacuum and true vacuum, and perhaps the universe is existing in false vacuum and could disappear at any moment because it's all a big mistake. So here's the problem. The more we learn with science, the more we realize we don't know. What do I mean by that? As I get older, and I love being 61 because I know so much more than I used to, but my sense of the percentage of what I know compared to what there is to know is decreasing all the time. I could learn twice as much, and by the time I've learned twice as much, I realize how much there is to know. And that's growing faster, that's expanding faster than my knowledge is. And if you grow in wisdom, as you grow older, you're going to realize that that's true. When I was in my 20s, I thought, well, I understand about 3/4 of what's going on, and eventually I'll get it all. Now I'm thinking I understand maybe 3% of what's going on, even though I know multiples of what I did when I was younger. So that's the same thing with science. The more we learn, the more we realize there are great mysteries. And there's a big problem with science. Science believes that if you can't measure something, it's not worth talking about. In other words, if it's not a physical reality that you can measure, observe, and compare with other things, then it's irrelevant. But the truth is, right now, I and you are having an internal experience which is not measurable. We have no idea what a sound is. We can send sound through the air, but how you experience it and how music plays in your mind is impossible to measure or even listen to. For all I know, what I see as green is what you see as blue, but we both call it green. We just don't know. And to prove this, you go to the doctor and you've got a really bad back pain, and the doctor will say on a scale of 1 to 10, how high is your pain level? Why? Because he or she cannot measure your pain, because pain is an internal experience which cannot be shared. It just can't be measured, can't be looked at. And in fact, most of what we experience can't be measured. Most of what we see in life is an internal experience known only to us. You can tell people about what's going on inside of you, but you can't show them. Remember show and tell? We can tell, but we can't show. What you have inside is completely sealed off to the rest of the world. That being the case, most of what you and I experience in life is outside of the bounds of science. And if you look at those things which are measurable, I find them just incredibly well designed. I look at hummingbirds and I just think, goodness, look at these things. How in the world could something like this just spontaneously form out of the ooze? I don't care how many trillions of years you've got to make that happen. It's like having 100 monkeys typing away on typewriters and hoping to come up with War and Peace. It's just never going to happen. And War and Peace is just nothing compared to the DNA inside of the cells of our bodies. So, that being the case, science is expanding but limited. And nothing that science is saying about the end of time is compatible with what we say about the end of time in the Bible. The Bible says that the Creator himself, through Jesus Christ, will set everything right. Justice will be meted out. Everything that is broken will be fixed. Every tear will be wiped away from our eyes. God will come and make everything as it should be. Now, that is a hope which really motivates me to do the best I can every day, because doing good things matters, and it moves us in the right direction towards God's kingdom where everything will be as it should be. So, the truth of the matter is that much of what we experience, and even the design of the outside world, begs the question, who designed this? Who created this? Who made this happen? And to have a scientific view that completely leaves that out is partial at best. It doesn't ask the big questions just because it can't measure them. Well, it's not going to be able to measure God's consciousness any more than it's going to be able to measure your consciousness or mine, which it can't. So, once in a while, we run into incompatible things. So when science teaches us in National Geographic magazine or wherever it is on some science show on TV that the universe will just freeze and go out with a whimper, that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches that we were designed, we are here for a reason, creation is here for a reason, and God will have his way with his creation. That's the good news for today. I hope that you will share this with other people. I don't fully understand this topic. You probably don't either, but let's start a good discussion in the comments and perhaps we can get closer to the truth with the Lord's help. Please pass this on to other people. Please do subscribe to this channel and watch all 5 of the videos. Number 4 will be showing tomorrow. Thanks for sticking around for the vocabulary. Just want to share some words which are not commonly used in English in North America, but are very common in studying the end times. The first one is eschatology. It's a Greek word which means the study of the last things. The eschaton is the end of all things. Eschatology is the study of the last things. Parousia is a compound word. Ousia means being, and para is in parallel, coming alongside us. That is the return of Christ to be with us, to come alongside us and to be near to us. Preterism and futurism. There are different ways of reading predictions in the Bible. Some of the predictions may have come true already, and people who emphasize this are called preterists. They say this doesn't need to be fulfilled because it already has been. Futurists tend to see predictions in the Bible as not yet fulfilled, and they argue over whether or not these things have been fulfilled or not. You're either a futurist or a preterist when you look at predictions from the Bible in your basic temperament in how you evaluate the texts. Dispensationalism. Dispensationalism is a form of theology that was invented in the 1800s by a guy named Darby, which cuts history into 1,000-year dispensations. And those 1,000-year dispensations each have a name, and there is a different way that God deals with people during each one of those dispensations. This is not to be found directly in the Bible, but it's a way of interpreting the Bible, which includes things like a pre-tribulation rapture and things like that. It has been championed by Calvary Chapel and some other churches. It is a very popular way of looking at the end times. It's been enshrined in the Left Behind series. The tribulation is a time of great distress for Christians. And it can be looked at as a 7-year tribulation, a great tribulation, or just tribulation in general. And the millennium is from the book of Revelation, where Jesus talks about, or the Bible talks about Jesus reigning for 1,000 years, or a millennium. That's the vocabulary you will need to understand these lessons. I hope that you'll watch all of them, sessions 1 through 5, things you need to know about the end times. And please pass this on to pastors, teachers, other people that you know, because we would love to have people study these very important things in the Bible. Blessings on you, and I'll talk to you again real soon.